Shalom, everybody. I hope you enjoyed our series on Samson. I feel an urgency to put another one of these out, and this is called Elijah, and this will be part one, his times. So Omri slept with his fathers and was buried in Samaria, and Ahab, his son, reigned in his stead. And in the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, began Ahab, the son of Omri, to reign over Israel, and Ahab, the son of Omri, reigned over Israel in Samaria 22 years. And Ahab, the son of Omri, did evil in the sight of the Lord, above all that were before him. And it came to pass, as if it had been a light thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, that he took to wife Jezebel, the daughter of Baal, king of Zidonians. And he went and served Baal and worshipped him. 1 Kings 16:28-31. The story of Elijah and Elisha takes place at the lowest time, morally and spiritually, in all of the history of Israel up until that time. Now, God often answers these times in unusual ways and sends prophets into hopeless situations to his backslidden people in the goodness and mercy of God. How bad were the times leading up to the ministry of Elijah? A brief summary: the kingdom of Israel had split shortly after Solomon's death. You realize that means that of the only 12 tribes that practiced the only true religion on earth at the time, 10 of those tribes broke away. Now the new king of those 10 tribes, Jeroboam, set up a new state religion in order to keep his constituency separate from the temple worship at Jerusalem. He didn't want them to go back and reunite. He did not want them to worship Yahweh. A series of increasingly evil kings came, one after another, to rule and reign over the 10 tribes. All of them imposed the apostate state religion that was started by Jeroboam on Israel. It was a worship of golden calves. A king named Omri arose, who was particularly evil. He had a son who succeeded him named Ahab, who ruled over the 10 tribes for 22 years. Ahab married a Sidonian priestess named Jezebel, who hated the God of Israel and persecuted any true worshipers who remained. Ahab and Jezebel set about to reestablish Baal worship, the original worship of the Canaanites, whom the Israelites had driven out. This is the agenda of paganism. Roll back the gains of the Bible, the God of the Bible, and the civilization based on the God of the Bible back to pre-Christian or pre-Yahwistic worship. Ahab and Jezebel reared up a temple to Baal and an altar of sacrifice in the capital city that their father had built, called Samaria. Jezebel immediately appointed 450 priests of Baal, and this initiated a persecution of any true worshipers that were left throughout Israel, which had nothing less than the extermination of all that was of God or of any who worshiped God. He also planted a grove, that's a sacred place dedicated to the obscene worship of Ashtaroth, who was Baal's consort. No king of Israel had ever gone so far to insult God as Ahab had, and that's according to Kings. Now, Baalism is a fertility religion which uses sympathetic magic rituals to ensure the fertility of the land and of the control of the weather, as well as the fertility of the people. The worship practices are appalling. They are so depraved and sexually immoral that God commanded Israel to wipe out all traces of Baal worship in the promised land with prejudice. Break down their altars, it says, Exodus 34, just one verse. Smash their sacred stones. Cut down their Asherah poles. Such worship rituals involve male and female temple prostitution, orgies, child sacrifice, homosexuality, and countless other dark and depraved practices. Many of these rituals took place in sacred groves, trees planted in special arrangement as temples to Baal and his consort, and in which fertility rituals were practiced often them being the most perverted sexuality. Finally, it was shortly before Elijah appeared that a prominent Israelite, Hiel, took upon himself to rebuild Jericho, the city destroyed in the days of Joshua. Now, in such times of apostasy, it is almost as if those who hate God are driven to seek to outdo each other in acts of daring apostasy. It's just like our time right now. That's what's going on right now. People, the elite, are trying to outdo each other in the repudiation of God. Joshua himself had called for a curse on any who would rebuild Jericho, and that curse was the death of the first and last sons of the builder. Now, this is a well-known fact, and it's in the book of Joshua 6:26. Joshua adjured them at that time, saying, "Cursed be the man before the Lord that rises up and builds this city Jericho. He shall lay the foundation thereof in his firstborn, and in his youngest son shall he set up the gates of it." Now, it's not clear whether Hiel suffered the outcome of the curse in the process of building the city, or that he possibly sacrificed his sons on an altar to Baal as an act of defiance against God in the building of the city. Such was the spirit of boldness to do evil in the days of Elijah. It seemed as though God had abandoned Israel, leaving the 10 tribes to her own devices and giving her over without temple, worship, priesthood, or witness to her own lusts. But it only seemed like that. It's not for long. Let me quote, "In his days did Hiel the Bethelite build Jericho. He laid the foundation thereof in Abiram, his firstborn, and set up the gates thereof in Segub, according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke by Joshua, the son of Nun." 1 Kings 16:34. Now, Alfred Edersheim seems to capture the spirit of the action of Hiel perfectly in his book, Bible History. Let me quote, "With the enthronement of Ahab and Jezebel, the establishment of the worship of Baal as the state religion, and the attempted extermination of the prophets and followers of the Lord, the apostasy of Israel had reached its high point. As if to mark alike the general disregard in Israel of the threatened judgments of God and the coming vindication of Jehovah's kingship, Holy Scripture here inserts a notice of the daring rebuilding of the walls of Jericho and of the literal fulfillment of Joshua's curse upon its builder." I hope you can see that this is prescient. This is exactly the times we're living in now. Stay tuned. Shalom.